the whole world will see who you really are.
My name is David Martinez, and 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. I'm 37, work as an IT systems administrator for a mid-sized insurance company, and live in what used to be my dream house in Millfield Heights, the kind of place where neighbors wave from their perfectly manicured lawns and everyone drives sensible SUVs. My wife, Jessica, is 35, works in corporate marketing, and has always been the ambitious one in our relationship. She's got that polished look that screams, "I have my life together." Designer clothes, perfect blonde highlights, and a smile that could sell ice to penguins. We've been married for 12 years, and I genuinely thought we were solid. Our kids are everything to me. Emma's 15, sharp as a tack, and has inherited her mother's ambition along with my sarcasm. Tyler's 12, obsessed with video games, and makes me laugh every single day with his dry observations about the world. I should have seen the signs earlier. Jessica's late nights at the office became more frequent. Her girls' nights out multiplied. She started going to the gym religiously, bought new lingerie that I never got to see, and began taking calls in the other room. Classic cheating wife behavior, but I was too trusting, too comfortable in our routine to connect the dots. The first real crack in my perfect world came on a Tuesday evening in March. I was fixing dinner, my famous spaghetti and meatballs, when Jessica walked in with her brother-in-law, Marcus Thompson. Marcus is married to Jessica's sister Claire, and he's everything I'm not. Tall, athletic, drives a BMW, works in real estate, and has that smug confidence that comes from never having to worry about money. "Hey, David," Marcus said, barely glancing at me as he helped himself to a beer from our fridge. "Jessica and I need to talk to you about something important." I wiped my hands on a dish towel, already feeling uneasy. "What's up?" Jessica wouldn't meet my eyes. "Marcus has a business opportunity. He thinks we should invest." "Invest what?" I asked, stirring the sauce to buy myself time to think. Marcus pulled out his phone and started showing me pictures of some commercial property downtown. "This building is going to be worth triple what we pay for it within 2 years. The city's planning a major development project right next door. I've got inside information." "How much are we talking about?" I asked, though I already suspected I wouldn't like the answer. 200,000, Jessica said quietly. "We'd need to take a second mortgage on the house." I nearly dropped the wooden spoon. "Are you insane? We just finished paying off Jessica's student loans. Emma's going to need college money in 3 years. We can't risk our house on some real estate speculation." Marcus laughed, that condescending chuckle that made my teeth itch. "David, this isn't speculation. This is a guaranteed return. Sometimes you have to take risks to build real wealth. You can't live your whole life playing it safe." Playing it safe? I turned off the burner and faced him. "Playing it safe is how we own this house. Playing it safe is how we have college funds for our kids. Playing it safe is how we sleep at night without worrying about losing everything." "That's exactly the problem," Marcus said, exchanging a look with Jessica. "You think small. You're content with your little IT job and your little suburban life, but Jessica deserves more. She deserves the chance to build something bigger." The way he said little made my blood pressure spike. "My little IT job pays for this house, Marcus. My little suburban life is what keeps our family stable and secure." Jessica finally spoke up. "David, I've already told Marcus we'd do it. Claire's investing too. It's a family decision." "A family decision?" I stared at her. "When exactly did you and Marcus become the family decision makers? Last I checked, you and I were married, not you and him." "Don't be dramatic," Jessica said, but her cheeks were flushed. "Marcus knows about these things. He's made a lot of money in real estate." "With other people's money," I pointed out. "Marcus, didn't you lose your shirt on that strip mall investment 2 years ago?" Marcus's friendly mask slipped for just a second. "That was different. The market conditions were unusual. This is a sure thing." "There's no such thing as a sure thing in real estate," I said. "And even if there was, we're not risking our children's security on your hunches." "Your children?" Marcus stepped closer, and I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with beer. "Jessica's children too, David, and she wants them to have more opportunities than you're capable of providing." That hit like a punch to the gut. I looked at Jessica, waiting for her to defend me, to tell her brother-in-law that he was out of line. Instead, she looked at the floor. "I think you should leave," I said to Marcus, my voice deadly calm. "David," Jessica started, but I held up my hand. "No." He comes into my house, drinks my beer, insults my job, questions my ability to provide for my family, and tries to pressure us into risking everything we built. He needs to leave now. Marcus set down his beer bottle hard enough to make me worry about the granite countertop. Fine, but Jessica, think about what I said. Some opportunities don't come twice. After he left, Jessica and I had our first real fight in years. She accused me of being jealous of Marcus's success, of holding her back, of being too conservative and scared to take chances. I accused her of being naive, of letting her brother-in-law manipulate her, of making major decisions without consulting me. We didn't speak for 3 days, but that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Marcus kept showing up, sometimes with Claire, sometimes alone, always with new investment schemes, and always with that same condescending attitude toward me. Jessica started siding with him more and more, questioning every financial decision I made, comparing our lifestyle to Marcus and Claire's constantly. Our friends began to notice the tension. We'd been part of a tight group for years, Jessica and me, Tom and Sarah Mitchell, and Jake and Amanda Rodriguez. We had weekly game nights, went on couples vacations together, celebrated every birthday and anniversary as a group. They were the kind of friends you think you'll have forever. But Marcus started poisoning that well too. The first sign that Marcus was actively working against me came during our monthly couples dinner at Tom and Sarah's house. We'd been doing these dinners for 8 years, rotating hosting duties, keeping the same format, potluck style, board games after dinner, and enough wine to make everyone forget about work stress for one evening. I was helping Tom grill burgers on their back deck when Jessica and Marcus, who'd somehow gotten himself invited, were inside talking to Sarah and Amanda. Through the sliding glass door, I could see Marcus gesturing animatedly, Jessica nodding along, while our friends listened with increasingly serious expressions. "What's that about?" Tom asked, flipping a burger. "Probably another one of Marcus's get-rich-quick schemes," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "He's been trying to get us to invest in some commercial property downtown." Tom raised an eyebrow. "The old Brennan building? I heard about that development project. Could be legitimate." "Could be, but not with our house as collateral." "Yeah, that's smart," Tom agreed. "Better to be safe with family money." But when we went inside for dinner, the atmosphere had shifted. Sarah kept giving me odd looks, and Amanda seemed uncomfortable whenever I spoke. Jake was his usual self, cracking jokes and keeping the conversation light, but I could tell even he sensed something was off. After dinner, while we were setting up for our usual game of Settlers of Catan, Marcus dropped his bombshell. "You know, David," he said, arranging his starting settlements with theatrical precision, "I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about playing it safe." I felt every eye at the table turn to me. "What about it?" "Well, I did some research on your company, Midwest Mutual Insurance, right?" Marcus smiled, but there was nothing friendly about it. "Did you know they've been losing market share for 3 consecutive quarters? And there are rumors about a merger with Continental Group?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard anything about a merger, but in the insurance industry, rumors like that usually had some basis in reality. "Where did you hear that?" "I have contacts in the financial sector," Marcus said casually, rolling the dice to start his turn. "The word is that Continental wants to streamline operations, eliminate redundancies, especially in IT departments, where they can centralize everything at their headquarters in Chicago." Jessica was staring at me with wide eyes. "David, you didn't tell me about any merger." "Because I don't know anything about a merger," I said, but doubt was already creeping in. There had been some unusual meetings lately, executives from other companies visiting our offices, hushed conversations between the senior management team. "Maybe you're not as plugged in as you think," Marcus suggested with mock sympathy. "I mean, IT guys aren't usually included in the big strategic discussions, right? You're more like support staff." The term support staff hung in the air like a bad smell. Tom cleared his throat uncomfortably. Sarah was studying her resource cards like they contained the secrets of the universe. "David's been with Midwest Mutual for 9 years, Jessica said, but her voice lacked conviction. "They value his experience?" "Experience in what, though?" Marcus pressed. "Fixing computers? Resetting passwords? How hard is it to replace someone who does that kind of work?" I felt heat rising in my cheeks. "I manage the entire network infrastructure for a company with 400 employees. I oversee database security, system integration, and disaster recovery protocols. It's not exactly tech support." "Right. But could someone else do it?" Marcus asked with that infuriating smile. "I mean, there are probably thousands of IT guys in this city who could handle that workload. You're not exactly irreplaceable." Amanda finally spoke up. "Marcus, that seems a little harsh." "I'm just being realistic." Marcus said, shrugging. David's been coasting in a comfortable job for years, but the world is changing. Technology is moving faster than ever. Companies want young, hungry talent who understand the latest trends, not guys who learned their skills 15 years ago and never adapted. I wanted to punch him. Instead, I took a deep breath and tried to respond calmly. I've kept up with every major technological development in my field. I have certifications in cloud computing, cybersecurity, and data analytics. I'm not some dinosaur running Windows 98 on outdated servers. Certifications, Marcus repeated dismissively. Anyone can take a weekend course and get a certificate. What matters is innovation, vision, the ability to think strategically about technology. And no offense, but you've never struck me as a visionary type. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked around the table at my friends, people who'd known me for years, who'd seen me solve complex technical problems, who'd benefited from my expertise countless times when their own computers or phones malfunctioned. But now they were all looking at me with something that might have been pity. You know what? I stood up from the table. I think we should call it a night. David, Jessica started, but I was already heading for the door. I'll wait in the car, I said without turning around. The drive home was silent except for the sound of Jessica's fingers tapping against her phone screen. When we got home, she finally spoke. You embarrassed me tonight. I stared at her. I embarrassed you? Your brother-in-law just spent 20 minutes telling our friends that I'm an incompetent loser who's about to lose his job, and somehow I'm the one who embarrassed you? He was trying to help, Jessica said. He was trying to make you see that maybe we need to think differently about our future. Maybe we need to take some risks while we still can. He was humiliating me in front of our friends, I said. And you just sat there and let him do it. Jessica's eyes flashed. What was I supposed to do? Lie? Pretend like everything is perfect when we both know you've been stuck in the same position for years. Marcus is successful, David. He's built something real. Maybe instead of resenting him, you should listen to what he's trying to tell you. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of the conversation. Was Marcus right? Was I really just a replaceable cog in a corporate machine? Had I been deluding myself about my value to the company? By morning, I'd made a decision. I was going to prove Marcus wrong. I was going to show everyone, including my wife, that I was more than just support staff. I had no idea how spectacularly that decision would backfire. The next few weeks were a nightmare of paranoia and self-doubt. Every meeting I wasn't invited to felt like evidence of the merger Marcus had mentioned. Every casual conversation between my supervisors seemed loaded with hidden meaning. I started staying late, taking on extra projects, volunteering for assignments that would normally go to more senior staff. Meanwhile, Marcus's campaign against me intensified. He started showing up at our house more frequently, always with new information about my company's supposed instability, always with Jessica's full attention and growing agreement. He'd bring printouts of financial reports, industry analyses, and competitor comparisons, spreading them across our dining room table like a general planning a military campaign. Look at this, he'd say, pointing to charts and graphs that might as well have been written in ancient Greek for all I understood them. Midwest Mutual's revenue is down 18% year over year. Their customer retention rate is the worst in the regional market. David, you're working for a sinking ship. Jessica would nod along, asking intelligent questions about market positioning and competitive advantages, while I felt increasingly stupid and left out of conversations about my own career. Marcus had a way of making everything sound both urgent and inevitable, like our financial ruin was just around the corner unless we acted immediately on his advice. The worst part was that he wasn't entirely wrong. I did some digging on my own and found that Midwest Mutual was indeed struggling. There hadn't been any official announcement about a merger, but there were definitely cost-cutting measures being implemented across all departments. 2 people in accounting had been laid off the previous month, and there was talk of consolidating some regional offices. But Marcus's solution, risking our house on his real estate investment, still seemed insane to me. Even if my job was in jeopardy, gambling everything we owned wasn't the answer. Our friends started pulling away. It began with small things, invitations that came later than usual, conversations that stopped when I entered the room, a general awkwardness that hadn't existed before. Tom and Sarah canceled our next couple's dinner, claiming they had family obligations. Jake and Amanda were friendly enough when I saw them individually, but they stopped initiating social plans. I finally confronted Tom about it when I ran into him at the grocery store on a Saturday morning. "Hey, stranger," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Haven't seen you guys in a while. Everything okay?" Tom looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot while clutching a shopping basket full of organic produce. "Yeah, everything's fine, just busy with work stuff, you know." "I know the feeling," I said. "Maybe we can grab a beer sometime this week. I could use a break from all the stress at home." "Actually, David, I should probably tell you something." Tom glanced around the produce section like he was worried about being overheard. "Sarah and I have been talking, and we think maybe you and Jessica need some space to work through your issues. The tension between you two is pretty obvious, and we don't want to get caught in the middle of it." I felt like he'd slapped me. "What issues? We're having some disagreements about finances, but that's normal for married couples. It's nothing that affects our friendships." Tom sighed. "It's not just the finances, man. Jessica's been talking to Sarah about how unhappy she is, about how you're holding her back, refusing to take chances, being stubborn about Marcus's advice. And honestly, after that dinner at our house, Marcus made some good points about your job situation. Maybe you should listen to what he's trying to tell you." Marcus made good points. I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. "Tom, the guy insulted me for 20 minutes straight. He called me incompetent and replaceable. How is that making good points?" "He was being honest," Tom said. "Sometimes people need to hear hard truths. The economy is changing, David. Job security isn't what it used to be. Maybe it's time to think bigger. Take some risks. Invest in your future." "With whose money?" I asked. "Tom, he wants us to mortgage our house to buy some commercial property downtown. That's not thinking bigger. That's gambling with our children's security." Tom shrugged. "Marcus has done pretty well for himself. Maybe he knows something you don't." That conversation haunted me for days. If Tom, my friend for 8 years, someone who'd always been supportive and loyal, was taking Marcus's side, how long before everyone else followed suit? The answer came sooner than I expected. Jake called me the following Tuesday evening while I was helping Tyler with his math homework. Emma was upstairs on a video call with friends, and Jessica was at another late meeting that would probably run until after 10. "Hey, David, can you talk for a minute?" Jake's voice was serious, none of his usual joking around. "Sure, what's up?" I moved to the kitchen for privacy. "Amanda and I are having people over this Saturday for a barbecue. Tom and Sarah will be there, along with some other folks from the neighborhood. We were going to invite you and Jessica, but..." He trailed off, and I felt my stomach sink. "But what?" "Look, this is awkward as hell, but Marcus is going to be there too. He and Claire are friends with the Hendersons from Maple Street, and they're all coming together. Amanda thought it might be weird to have both you and Marcus there, given the tension between you guys." "So you're uninviting me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "We're not uninviting you," Jake said quickly. Maybe it would be better if you sat this one out, just until things cool down between you and Marcus." "Things between me and Marcus?" I repeated. "Jake, I didn't start this conflict. The guy comes to my house uninvited, insults me in front of my friends, and tries to pressure my wife into making terrible financial decisions. How exactly is that my fault?" "It's not about fault," Jake said, sounding frustrated. "It's about keeping the peace. Marcus is family to Jessica, and Jessica is your wife. Maybe you need to find a way to get along with him." "Get along with him?" My voice was rising, and I had to remind myself that Tyler was in the next room. "Jake, would you get along with someone who told your friends that you were incompetent at your job and that your wife deserved better?" "If that someone was family, I'd try to work it out," Jake said. "Look, David, I'm not taking sides here, but from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're letting your pride get in the way of what's best for your family." After Jake hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My friends, people I'd known for years, people I'd helped move apartments and fix computers and celebrate promotions, had chosen Marcus over me. They'd decided that keeping peace with Jessica's brother-in-law was more important than loyalty to someone they'd known much longer. When Jessica got home that night, I told her about the phone call. "You're not invited to Jake and Amanda's barbecue," I said without preamble. Jessica paused in the middle of taking off her heels. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Jake called and told me it would be awkward to have both Marcus and me there, so they're asking me to stay home." Jessica's reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of outrage on my behalf, she looked almost relieved. "Maybe that's for the best," she said. "You and Marcus clearly can't be in the same room without fighting." At least this way, I can go and have a good time without worrying about you two causing a scene. I stared at her. You're going? Without me? Why wouldn't I go? Claire will be there, and I haven't seen her in weeks. Just because you can't get along with Marcus doesn't mean I should miss out on spending time with my sister. Jessica, they uninvited your husband. They chose your brother-in-law over me. How are you okay with that? She sighed like I was being unreasonable. David, you're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be. It's one barbecue. Maybe if you spent less time being defensive and more time actually listening to Marcus's advice, we wouldn't be in this situation. That night, lying in bed while Jessica slept peacefully beside me, I realized that I'd already lost. My wife was choosing her brother-in-law over me. My friends were choosing social convenience over loyalty. I was being systematically isolated and undermined, and there didn't seem to be anything I could do to stop it. But I was wrong about that last part. There was something I could do. I just hadn't figured out what it was yet. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood perfectly. Jessica spent the morning getting ready for the barbecue I wasn't invited to, trying on different outfits and asking Emma for fashion advice. She seemed genuinely excited about the party, chatting about who would be there and what she should bring as a hostess gift. Are you sure you'll be okay here with Tyler? She asked, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. We'll survive, I said, not looking up from my laptop where I was pretending to work on a project for the office. Maybe you could use the time to think about what Marcus said, Jessica suggested, about the investment opportunity. Claire told me yesterday that they're almost ready to close on the property, and there might still be room for one more investor. I finally looked at her. She was wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before, something expensive looking in a deep blue that brought out her eyes. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked beautiful, and she was getting dressed up to go to a party where her friends would talk about what a loser her husband was. I'm not investing our house in Marcus's scheme, I said quietly. Jessica's face hardened. It's not a scheme, David. It's a legitimate business opportunity, but you're too stubborn and scared to see it. After she left, Tyler and I ordered pizza and settled in for a gaming marathon. He'd been trying to teach me how to play Fortnite, with limited success, but I appreciated his patience with his old man's slow reflexes. For a few hours, I managed to forget about Marcus and Jessica and the barbecue where all my former friends were probably discussing my many shortcomings. But around 7 o'clock, my phone started buzzing with text messages. The first was from Tom. Dude, you need to get over here, now. Then Sarah. David, please come to Jake's house. Something's happening with Jessica. Finally, Jake himself. Emergency, come now, bring your car keys. My blood turned to ice. I called Jake immediately. What's wrong? Is Jessica hurt? Just get over here, Jake said, his voice tight. And David, you might want to prepare yourself. This is bad. I got Mrs. Patterson from next door to stay with Tyler and drove to Jake's house with my heart hammering against my ribs. The barbecue was clearly in full swing. Cars lined both sides of the street, and I could hear music and laughter coming from the backyard. But when I walked around to the back gate, the scene that greeted me was anything but festive. Jessica was sitting in a lawn chair with Amanda's arm around her shoulders, crying so hard her makeup had run in black streams down her cheeks. Claire was kneeling beside her, holding her hand and speaking in low, urgent tones. Marcus was nowhere to be seen. Tom spotted me first and jogged over, his face grim. What happened? I demanded. Marcus had too much to drink, Tom said quietly. Started talking about you, about your marriage, about Jessica deserving better. It got really ugly, really fast. Where is he now? Tom nodded toward the house. Jake and Steve Henderson are keeping him inside until you got here. David, he said some things that Jessica didn't know he'd been saying. About you, about your job, about your marriage. She's pretty shaken up. I looked over at my wife, who was still sobbing in Amanda's arms, and felt a mixture of relief and rage. Relief that she was finally seeing Marcus for what he really was, and rage that it had taken public humiliation for her to open her eyes. I want to talk to him, I said. Tom grabbed my arm. That's probably not a good idea right now. He's drunk and angry, and you're pretty angry too. Tom, he's been systematically destroying my marriage and my friendships for weeks. He humiliated my wife in front of our friends tonight. I'm going to talk to him, and you can either help me do it calmly or get out of my way while I do it my way. Tom studied my face for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but Jake and I are staying with you. This doesn't turn into a fight. We found Marcus in Jake's living room, slumped on the couch with a beer in his hand and a belligerent expression on his face. Steve Henderson was sitting across from him looking deeply uncomfortable. Jake was pacing by the window. "Well, well," Marcus said when he saw me. "The man of the hour. Come to collect your wife?" "I came to hear what you have to say to my face," I said, staying near the doorway. "Apparently, you've been pretty talkative tonight." Marcus laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "Oh, I've been talkative for weeks, David. The question is whether you've been listening." "I've been listening," I said. "I've heard you call me incompetent. I've heard you tell my friends that I'm holding Jessica back. I've heard you pressure my wife to risk our house on your investment schemes. What I haven't heard is why you think any of that is your business." "It's my business because Jessica is my sister-in-law," Marcus said, leaning forward. "It's my business because she comes to Claire crying about how unhappy she is, how trapped she feels, how she married a man with no ambition and no vision for the future." The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my voice steady. "Did Jessica tell you to say those things, or are you speaking for her?" "I'm speaking the truth," Marcus said. "Jessica deserves better than a small-time IT guy who's afraid of his own shadow. She deserves someone who can give her the life she wants, not someone who holds her back with his mediocrity." "And I suppose you think you know what kind of life she wants?" Marcus's smile was ugly. "I know she wants more than you can give her. I know she's tired of pretending to be happy with your boring little suburban existence. I know she's been thinking about what her life would look like if she'd made different choices." The implication hung in the air like smoke. Tom and Jake were both staring at Marcus with expressions of shock and disgust. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" I asked, my voice deadly quiet. "I'm saying your wife is an intelligent, beautiful woman who settled for less than she deserved," Marcus said. "And I'm saying that if she ever decides she wants more, she knows where to find it." The room erupted. Jake started shouting at Marcus to get out of his house. Tom was yelling something about crossing lines. Steve Henderson was backing toward the door like he wanted to escape the whole scene. But I just stood there, staring at Marcus, finally understanding the full scope of what had been happening. This wasn't just about investment opportunities or job security. This was about Marcus wanting my wife. "Get out," I said, cutting through the noise. Everyone stopped talking and looked at me. "Get out of this house," I repeated, my voice carrying authority I didn't know I possessed. "Get in your car, drive home, and stay away from my family." Marcus stood up, swaying slightly. "Or what? You'll file a complaint with HR? You'll block me on Facebook? Face it, David, you're not man enough to do anything about this." That's when I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile, and it made Marcus take a step backward. "You're right," I said. "I'm not man enough to get into a fistfight with my wife's drunk brother-in-law at a neighborhood barbecue, but I am smart enough to know exactly how to destroy you. And Marcus, I'm going to enjoy every minute of it." The ride home was silent except for Jessica's occasional sniffles. She sat in the passenger seat staring out the window, her party dress wrinkled and her makeup destroyed. I'd helped her to the car while our friends watched with a mixture of sympathy and curiosity. Everyone suddenly very interested in being supportive now that the drama had reached its climax. Tyler was asleep on the couch when we got home, the TV still playing some action movie he'd probably fallen asleep watching. I carried him upstairs to his room while Jessica disappeared into our bathroom. By the time I came back downstairs, I could hear the shower running. I sat in my home office, staring at my computer screen, and began to plan Marcus Thompson's destruction. The first thing I did was research. If you want to destroy someone in the modern world, you need information, and I had access to more information than Marcus probably realized. My job might be support staff to him, but being an IT systems administrator meant I knew how to find digital needles in electronic haystacks. I started with public records. Marcus Thompson, age 42, married to Claire Martinez Thompson for 8 years, no children. Owned a house in Riverside Estates worth approximately $750,000 with a mortgage balance of $520,000. Drove a 2021 BMW X5, leased, not owned. His real estate license was current, but his sales volume for the past 2 years was significantly lower than what he'd been bragging about. Then I dug deeper. Marcus's business, Thompson Properties LLC, had been involved in 3 failed real estate ventures in the past 5 years. The strip mall investment he'd lost money on was just the tip of the iceberg. He'd also been part of a residential development that went bankrupt when the builder couldn't secure financing, and a commercial renovation project that ended in litigation when the contractors discovered asbestos that Marcus had failed to disclose. But the real gold mine was his social media presence. Marcus was one of those people who documented every aspect of his life online, posting photos of expensive dinners, luxury vacations, and business meetings with captions designed to make him look more successful than he actually was. What he didn't realize was that those same posts created a detailed timeline of his activities and spending habits. Cross-referencing his social media posts with public financial records painted a very different picture than the one he presented to the world. The expensive dinners were mostly at chain restaurants he was trying to make look upscale with creative photography. The luxury vacations were weekend trips to budget hotels that he photographed from flattering angles. The business meetings were often at coffee shops and casual restaurants, not the high-end establishments where serious real estate deals get made. Marcus Thompson wasn't successful. He was broke and desperate, living on credit and borrowed time, trying to project an image of success while scrambling to find investors for increasingly risky schemes. The commercial property he wanted us to invest in? I found the listing online. It was a 40-year-old office building in a declining part of downtown, with a vacancy rate of 60% and a history of code violations. The inside information about city development was publicly available information about a proposed light rail extension that had been stuck in planning committees for 3 years with no firm timeline for completion. But Marcus's financial desperation, while satisfying to discover, wasn't enough to destroy him. For that, I needed something more personal. I found it in his marriage. Claire Thompson, my wife's sister, Marcus's wife of 8 years, had her own social media presence, and it told a very different story than her husband's carefully curated image. While Marcus posted photos of expensive dinners and business success, Claire posted increasingly frequent girls' nights out, solo trips to visit family, and cryptic messages about finding yourself and knowing your worth. The timeline was telling. Claire's posts about marriage and partnership had become less frequent over the past 2 years, replaced by inspirational quotes about independence and self-reliance. She'd started going back to school part-time, working toward a nursing degree. Her recent photos showed her looking happier and more confident, but Marcus appeared in fewer and fewer of them. Most interesting of all, Claire had been liking and commenting on posts from a guy named Robert Chen, a divorced father of 2 who worked as a physical therapist and seemed to share Claire's interest in hiking and outdoor activities. Their online interactions had the unmistakable tone of 2 people who were interested in each other, but trying to keep it appropriate. Marcus's marriage was falling apart, and he was either too self-absorbed to notice or too desperate to admit it. Either way, it gave me leverage. But I still needed a way to use all this information without looking like a stalker who'd spent hours researching his wife's brother-in-law. The plan that formed in my mind was simple, elegant, and completely legal. I was going to give Marcus exactly what he wanted, a chance to prove he was better than me. The next morning, Jessica and I had our first honest conversation in months. She apologized for not seeing what Marcus had been doing, for letting him poison her against me, for believing his lies about my job and our future. She was embarrassed and angry, both at Marcus and at herself for being manipulated. "I should have known," she said over coffee while the kids got ready for school. "Claire's been dropping hints for months that things aren't good between them, but I was so caught up in Marcus's sales pitch that I didn't put it together." "What kind of hints?" I asked. "Just comments about how Marcus is always working on some new deal that never seems to materialize. How he spends money they don't have on business expenses that don't make sense. How he's become secretive about their finances and defensive when she asks questions." "Sounds familiar," I said dryly. Jessica winced. "I'm sorry, David. I should have listened to you. I should have trusted your judgment instead of letting Marcus make me doubt you." "It's okay," I said, and meant it. "But I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to call Marcus and tell him you've convinced me to invest in his commercial property deal." Jessica stared at me. "What? Why would you want to do that?" "I don't want to do it," I said. "I want him to think I'm going to do it. There's a difference." Over the next hour, I explained my plan to Jessica. It was risky, and it required her to lie convincingly to her sister and brother-in-law, but when I finished explaining what I'd discovered about Marcus's real financial situation, she was fully on board. "He's been using us," she said, anger flashing in her eyes. "He's been trying to manipulate our marriage to get access to our money because he's desperate." "Exactly. And now, we're going to let him think it worked." Jessica made the call that afternoon, putting on an Academy Award-worthy performance as the wife who'd finally convinced her stubborn husband to see reason. She told Marcus that I'd agreed to meet with him to discuss the investment, but only if he could provide detailed financial projections and documentation about the property. Marcus was so excited he could barely contain himself. He agreed to meet me the following Saturday morning at a coffee shop downtown, promising to bring everything I needed to see what a great opportunity this was. What he didn't know was that I'd already prepared my own documentation: financial records, social media screenshots, property histories, and marriage license information that painted a very different picture of Marcus Thompson than the one he'd been selling. I wasn't going to that meeting to discuss investing in his scheme. I was going to destroy him. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear, the kind of autumn day that makes you believe anything is possible. I dressed carefully, khakis, button-down shirt, and a blazer that Jessica said made me look serious but approachable. I wanted to look like a man who was ready to make a major financial decision, not someone who was about to detonate a bomb under Marcus Thompson's entire existence. The coffee shop Marcus had chosen was one of those trendy places in the Arts District, all exposed brick and reclaimed wood, where a simple latte cost more than most people spent on lunch. It was exactly the kind of place Marcus would pick to impress someone: expensive enough to seem successful, casual enough to seem approachable. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with his laptop open and a stack of manila folders arranged in front of him like battle plans. He'd dressed for success, too. Expensive suit, gold watch, leather briefcase that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. He looked like a man who was about to close the deal of his lifetime. "David." He stood up and extended his hand with a smile that seemed genuinely warm. "I'm so glad Jessica convinced you to give this a real look. You're going to love what I've put together." I shook his hand and sat down across from him, noting how he'd positioned himself with his back to the wall so he could see the entire coffee shop. Classic salesman technique: control the environment, project confidence, never let the mark feel like they have the upper hand. "I appreciate you taking the time to put this together," I said, pulling out my own folder. "But before we get started, I have a few questions." "Of course," Marcus said, his smile never wavering. "I want you to be completely comfortable with this investment. What would you like to know?" "Well, first, I'd like to know about your track record with previous investments. Jessica mentioned that you've been involved in several real estate deals over the past few years." Marcus's smile flickered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Absolutely. I've been involved in multiple projects, and while not every deal works out exactly as planned, that's the nature of real estate investment. The key is diversification and knowing when to cut your losses." "Right," I said, opening my folder and pulling out the first document. "So when you cut your losses on the Riverside Strip Mall project, how much did you lose?" The color drained from Marcus's face. "How did you... that project had some unique challenges that weren't foreseeable when we started." "Unique challenges like the fact that you didn't properly research the zoning restrictions before investing?" I asked, consulting my notes. "Or unique challenges like the fact that the anchor tenant you'd promised investors was never actually committed to leasing space?" Marcus was no longer smiling. "David, I'm not sure what you think you've discovered, but every real estate investor has deals that don't work out. That's why this opportunity is so different. I've learned from those experiences." "Have you?" I pulled out another document. "Because the Creekside residential development that went bankrupt last year seems to have involved the same kind of misrepresentation to investors. You told people the builder had secured financing when they actually hadn't, didn't you?" "That's not." "The financing fell through at the last minute due to market conditions beyond anyone's control." "Market conditions? Or the fact that the builder discovered you'd inflated the projected sales numbers to make the project look more viable than it actually was?" Marcus was starting to sweat now, despite the coffee shop's air conditioning. "David, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish here, but if you're not interested in this investment, you could have just said so over the phone." "Oh, but I am interested," I said, smiling for the first time since I'd sat down. "I'm very interested in understanding exactly who I'm dealing with. For instance, I'm interested in knowing how someone who's lost money on multiple failed investments can afford a BMW X5 and a house in Riverside Estates." "My personal finances are none of your business," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its confident tone. "Actually, they are my business if you're asking me to invest my family's money with you," I replied, "which is why I did some research. Would you like to know what I found?" I didn't wait for his answer. I pulled out a printed spreadsheet and slid it across the table. Your house is mortgaged for 70% of its value. Your car is leased, not owned, and according to your tax returns, which are public record for LLC owners, Thompson Properties has shown a loss for 3 of the past 4 years. You're not successful, Marcus. You're broke. Marcus stared at the spreadsheet like it was a snake that might bite him. You have no right to investigate my private financial information. Everything on that sheet is public record, I said. The same public records that show the commercial property you want us to invest in has been on the market for 18 months, has a 60% vacancy rate, and needs approximately $200,000 in repairs to bring it up to current building codes. The development project will change everything, Marcus said desperately. The light rail extension will transform that entire area. The light rail extension that's been stuck in planning committees for 3 years with no approved timeline or guaranteed funding? I asked. That light rail extension? Marcus's hands were shaking now. He reached for his coffee cup, but his grip was so unsteady that he nearly knocked it over. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want you to stop lying to my wife, I said. I want you to stop trying to manipulate our marriage for your own benefit. And I want you to stay away from my family. And if I don't, I pulled out the final document in my folder, a printout of Claire's social media interactions with Robert Chen, complete with timestamps and increasingly flirtatious comments. Then I show this to Claire, I said simply. Marcus went completely white. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you information, I corrected. What you do with that information is up to you. But Marcus, let me be very clear about something. I know exactly who you are now. You're a failed businessman who's been living beyond his means for years, desperately trying to find investors to bail you out of your mounting debts. You saw my stable marriage and my family's financial security as an opportunity to exploit. I leaned forward, holding his gaze. But here's what you didn't count on. I may be just a support staff IT guy, but I'm very, very good at finding information. And I'm even better at using it. So if you ever, and I mean ever, try to interfere in my marriage again, I will destroy you so completely that you'll spend the rest of your life explaining to people why nobody in this city will do business with you. Marcus was breathing hard, like he'd just run a marathon. Claire doesn't know about Robert. Not yet, I agreed, but she's going to find out eventually. The question is whether she finds out from you in a conversation where you take responsibility for your failing marriage and your financial lies, or whether she finds out from me, along with documentation of every lie you've told and every scheme you've tried to pull. I stood up and closed my folder. You have until tomorrow night to decide. Either way, stay away from my family. I walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Marcus sitting alone at the table, staring at the evidence of his own failures spread out in front of him like the remnants of a car crash. The call came Sunday evening while we were having dinner. Jessica's phone rang, and when she saw Claire's name on the screen, she glanced at me with raised eyebrows. Should I answer it? She asked. Might as well, I said. We'll find out how Marcus decided to handle things. Jessica answered the call and immediately held the phone away from her ear as Claire's voice came through, loud and emotional. Even from across the table, I could make out words like liar and divorce, and how could he? Claire, slow down, Jessica said. What happened? The conversation that followed was one-sided from our perspective, but Claire's side of the story came through clearly enough. Marcus had confessed everything: the failed investments, the mounting debts, the lies about his success, and the fact that he'd been trying to manipulate Jessica and me into bailing him out financially. He'd also admitted that their marriage had been in trouble for months, and that he'd been so focused on his business failures that he hadn't noticed Claire pulling away. What he hadn't told her was about Robert Chen. That discovery had come later, when Claire decided to look through Marcus's phone and found text messages that made it clear he'd been investigating her online activities. The invasion of privacy had been the final straw. She's filing for divorce, Jessica told me after she hung up. She's moving in with her parents until she can find her own place. And she wants to know if we can help her figure out how to protect her assets during the divorce proceedings. Of course we can help, I said. Do you think she knows that I'm the one who gave Marcus the information? Jessica shook her head. She thinks Marcus hired a private investigator to spy on her. Apparently, he told her he was suspicious about her late nights and wanted proof before he confronted her. I almost felt sorry for Marcus. Almost. He'd been so desperate to avoid taking responsibility for his own failures that he'd thrown away his last chance at salvaging his marriage by lying about how he'd discovered Claire's emotional affair. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal consultations, moving arrangements, and family drama. Claire stayed with Jessica's parents while she looked for an apartment and consulted with divorce attorneys. Marcus moved out of their house and into a studio apartment across town, apparently unable to afford anything larger once Claire froze their joint accounts. Our friends gradually began reaching out again, offering awkward apologies for the way they'd treated me and expressing shock at how completely they'd misjudged Marcus's character. Tom and Sarah invited us over for dinner and spent the entire evening apologizing for doubting me. Jake and Amanda threw a welcome back barbecue that felt like a celebration of Marcus's absence. "I can't believe we fell for his act," Sarah said one evening while we were playing board games like old times. "He seemed so confident, so successful. It never occurred to us that it was all fake." "Confidence is easy to fake when you're desperate enough," I replied. "Marcus needed us to believe he was successful because his entire scheme depended on projecting an image of competence." "But how did you figure it out?" Tom asked. "What made you suspicious when the rest of us were buying into his story?" "Because it was my money he wanted," I said simply. When someone is trying to separate you from your life savings, you pay attention to details that you might otherwise ignore. The truth was more complicated than that, of course. I'd figured out Marcus's game because I'd been motivated by anger and betrayal to dig deeper than anyone else had bothered to dig. But I didn't see any reason to share the full extent of my investigation with our friends. Some victories are better kept private. Jessica and I used the experience to strengthen our marriage in ways I hadn't expected. The crisis had forced us to communicate more honestly about our finances, our goals, and our concerns about the future. We started having weekly money meetings where we discussed our budget, our savings goals, and any major financial decisions we were considering. "I never want to be that vulnerable to manipulation again," Jessica told me one evening as we were reviewing our retirement accounts. "Marcus was able to get inside my head because I felt insecure about our financial future. If we're more transparent with each other about money, that can't happen." She also started taking a more active role in understanding our investments and insurance policies, asking questions about things she'd previously left entirely to me. It wasn't that she didn't trust me. It was that she wanted to be an equal partner in our financial planning, rather than a passive recipient of my decisions. Emma and Tyler had watched the entire drama unfold with the sharp-eyed awareness that teenagers bring to adult conflicts. They'd seen their mother manipulated, their father undermined, and their extended family torn apart by greed and deception. "Uncle Marcus was kind of an idiot, wasn't he?" Tyler observed one day while we were working on his science project. "Uncle Marcus made some bad choices," I replied diplomatically. "Bad choices like lying to everyone and trying to steal our money?" I looked at my 12-year-old son, who is apparently more perceptive than most of the adults in our social circle. "Yeah," I said, "bad choices like that." Emma was less diplomatic in her assessment. "I never liked him," she announced at dinner one night. "He always talked to me like I was stupid, and he never listened when Mom was talking. He just waited for his turn to talk about himself." "That's a very mature observation," Jessica said. "It's not that mature," Emma replied. "It's just obvious if you're paying attention." 6 months after the coffee shop confrontation, I ran into Marcus at the grocery store. It was a Saturday morning, and I was picking up supplies for Tyler's birthday party when I spotted him in the frozen food aisle, looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in half that time. His expensive clothes had been replaced by off-the-rack khakis and a polo shirt that had seen better days. His BMW was nowhere to be seen in the parking lot. He was apparently driving a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door. Most telling of all, he was shopping with coupons, carefully checking prices and comparing brands like someone who actually had to worry about grocery bills. He saw me at the same time I saw him, and for a moment, we just stared at each other across the frozen pizza display. Then he pushed his cart in my direction. "David," he said quietly. "Marcus," I replied. "I suppose you've heard about the divorce?" "I heard. I'm sorry it didn't work out." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Are you? Really?" I considered the question seriously. "I'm sorry for Claire. She didn't deserve to be lied to and manipulated. As for you, you made your choices." Marcus nodded slowly. "I did. And you made yours." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know you're the one who investigated me. I know you're the one who gave Claire the information about Robert Chen. Marcus wasn't smart enough to figure out all that stuff on his own. I didn't deny it. Does it matter? No, Marcus said after a long pause. It doesn't matter. Everything you told Claire was true. Everything you discovered about my business failures was accurate. You didn't lie about anything or make anything up. You just showed people who I really was. And who were you really, Marcus? He was quiet for so long, I thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I was a man who was so afraid of being seen as a failure that I turned myself into exactly the kind of person I'd always despised. I lied to my wife. I manipulated my friends, and I tried to destroy your marriage because I was desperate, and I thought you had something I could take. Why are you telling me this? Marcus looked directly at me for the first time since we'd started talking. Because I want you to know that I understand what you did to me, and I want you to know that I deserved it. He started to push his cart away, then stopped and turned back. For what it's worth, Jessica was never interested in me. Not romantically, I mean. I tried to convince myself that she was just waiting for the right opportunity to leave you. But that was just another lie, I told myself. She loves you, David. She always did. I was just too bitter and jealous to see it. After he left, I stood in the frozen food aisle for several minutes, processing the conversation. I'd expected to feel triumphant if I ever encountered Marcus again, to enjoy seeing him humbled and defeated. Instead, I felt something closer to pity. Marcus Thompson had destroyed his own life through greed, desperation, and self-deception. I'd simply been the catalyst that brought his failures into the light. The real architect of his downfall had been Marcus himself. That evening, I told Jessica about the encounter. Do you think he's learned anything from all this? She asked. I think he's learned that actions have consequences, I said. Whether he's learned how to make better choices going forward, that's up to him. Jessica was quiet for a moment, then said, I feel guilty sometimes about how easily he manipulated me, about how I doubted you, about how I let him poison our marriage. You don't need to feel guilty, I told her. Marcus was very good at manipulation. He'd had years of practice lying to Claire, lying to his business partners, lying to himself. You weren't the first person to fall for his act, and you probably won't be the last. But I should have trusted you. And I should have communicated better about what I was seeing, I replied. We both made mistakes. The important thing is that we learned from them. A year later, Claire remarried. Her new husband was Robert Chen, the physical therapist she'd been talking to online during the final months of her marriage to Marcus. Their wedding was small and simple, held in Jessica's parents' backyard with just family and close friends in attendance. Jessica was Claire's maid of honor, and I walked her down the aisle since their father had passed away several years earlier. During the reception, Claire pulled me aside for a private conversation. I never thanked you properly, she said. For what? For exposing Marcus's lies, for giving me the information I needed to protect myself during the divorce, for helping me see that my marriage was over before I wasted any more years trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. I didn't do it for you, I said honestly. I did it to protect my own family. I know, Claire said, but the result was the same. You saved me from years of financial and emotional manipulation, even if that wasn't your intention. She paused, looking across the yard to where Robert was talking with Tyler about baseball. Robert is everything Marcus pretended to be. Honest, successful in a quiet way, genuinely interested in building a partnership rather than just taking what he wants. I never would have been free to find him if you hadn't forced the truth into the open. As for Marcus, we heard occasional updates through the family grapevine. He'd moved to another city, taken a job with a large real estate firm where he worked as a regular agent rather than trying to run his own business. According to Claire, he was paying his alimony and child support. They'd never had children, but he owed her significant financial compensation as part of the divorce settlement, and seemed to be living within his means for the first time in years. Do you think he'll stay reformed? Jessica asked after one of these updates. I think he'll stay scared, I replied, and sometimes that's enough. 2 years after our coffee shop confrontation, I got a promotion at work. The merger Marcus had predicted never materialized, but the company did restructure, and I was promoted to IT director with a significant salary increase and expanded responsibilities. The promotion came with my own office, a small team of technicians reporting to me, and recognition that I was more than just support staff. On my first day in the new position, I found an envelope on my desk with no return address. Inside was a simple card with a handwritten message. Congratulations on the promotion. You were right about everything. M. I showed the card to Jessica that evening. Are you going to respond? She asked. No, I said. There's nothing left to say. I threw the card away, and I never heard from Marcus Thompson again. But every time someone tries to tell me that I'm just an IT guy, or that I should take bigger risks with my family's security, or that I don't understand how the world really works, I remember the look on Marcus's face when I laid out all his failures and lies on that coffee shop table. I remember that knowledge is power, that patience is a virtue, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people destroy themselves while you document the process. Most importantly, I remember that protecting your family isn't about being the strongest or the loudest or the most aggressive person in the room. Sometimes it's about being the smartest.